It is my absolute honour to bring you today's guest, which is Samantha Wills. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much.
Samantha's one of my favourite female entrepreneurs. Just been a female powerhouse from your jewellery design business. I think you started off there in Bondi, selling at the markets, and then moving to New York and creating this global brand, so well recognized, the Samantha Wills jewellery line. And I remember getting my very first pair of Samantha Wills earrings, and I was looking for the specific style for so long and I couldn't find them anywhere. It was the chandelier, very sort of, boho and rustic. And as soon as I came across your brand, I thought, that's it, she just gets it. I very much admire the businesswoman in you, but also importantly, I think what inspires me the most is how you've just become such a voice for so many inspiring entrepreneurs, a lot of females, but obviously males as well, and just being really authentic and true to yourself in terms of talking about some of the challenges of entrepreneurship, some of the lowlights. Obviously, there's so much of those as much as there are, the highlights. So again, thank you so much. It's just such a great fit to have you on here today. So that probably hasn't done much justice, actually. So if you could just walk us through your sort of journey and how the brand's evolved, and I think importantly, how you've managed to stay true to your personal, brand and use your intuition to make those big sort of decisions along the way, and how your brand's evolved with that.
Yeah, it's it's a 15-year journey, I guess, the jewellery business. So I started when I was 21 years old at Bondi Beach markets, and really had no idea what I was doing. Everyone's like, "You're so brave to do it." I'm like, I was naive and obnoxious. I called the brand Samantha Wills, how modest, and really had no idea what I was doing. So in 2004, launched at Australian Fashion Week, ended up writing $17,000 worth of orders. I was like, all right, well, shit, I guess I'm a jewelry designer now, and quit my real job the next day, and kind of through literally every single thing that I had at building this jewelry brand. By the time I was 26, I got myself into $80,000 worth of debt because I knew how to build a brand, but I did not know how to run a business at that time. And serendipitously met my business partner. And he came on board. I didn't want a cent from him. I just wanted his business mind in the company, and I convinced him. It took me about 6 months to convince him to come on board, and when he did, we went on to have 11 years in business together up until the point that I closed, and he was very much the business and logistics side of it, and I was the creative brand side of it. So as you mentioned, I've been in New York and built the brand over there, so I've been living there for the last 10 years and just come back to Australia. And in 2018, so 14 years into that journey, it was just something in me. That I felt like we'd told all the stories we could alongside Samantha Wills as a jewelry brand. And I didn't see an out. I didn't know what the out was. It was like, do I take a board position? Do I step back? And it's really hard when you've named a brand after yourself to try and exit it in a way. To me, selling or closing at that time was not an option. It wasn't even something that entered my mind. We really tried to remove myself from the day-to-day. I was traveling back and forth from New York every 6 weeks, so I didn't want to do that travel anymore. And no matter which way we tried to remove myself from it, it didn't pan out. And I just got to a point where I'd done over 100 flights between Sydney and New York, and I just knew something had to change. And I went up to a meditation retreat, which sounds very cliche, I realize, in upstate New York, and I was there doing a workshop on intuition, and that day we'd study kind of left side and right side of the brain and how that resonates through decision making and intuition. And as I was walking back to my cabin one night, my business partner had sent me an email, and we send each other emails kind of once a quarter, just based on the observation of the business. It wasn't about the P&L or numbers or anything. It was just like, here's a sense I've got. And he'd written the businesses at a crossroads, and essentially what the email was saying was, whatever you choose to do, we will support the business around that, but you need to be happy, because if Samantha Wills, the person's not happy, the brand is going to follow suit. And so the title was Businesses at a Crossroads, and I stopped to read the email on my phone, and when I looked up, I was standing at a physical crossroads. So the road I was at the campus, it was like the kind of bigger road around the campus, which went to my left. And the one to my right was this kind of bark chip that went through like a flower garden and a veggie patch and things. And I know this sounds completely mad, but I just put my hand on my heart, and I just heard this, I felt this voice. I didn't hear a voice, I felt this voice where it's just like, it's time to close. And I'm kind of like, I was like, it's time to close. And so, you know, when you talk about intuition before, I'm like, the biggest hit of intuition to me was just this feeling of, you know, this turmoil I'd gone through probably for 2 years of how am I going to step out of this and keep it going? And it's like, well, the answer is you're not. You're going to close it. And yes, that was in 2018. I made that decision. In 2000, we did a 6-month closure. I didn't want to sell. I didn't want to sell my name. So we closed it on the 11th of January 2019. And then the brand now has kind of evolved. The Samantha Wills Foundation, which is a foundation around women in business and young entrepreneurs, young in the journey, not young in age, specific. So I work a lot in that field, and that's kind of how the brand has evolved from a jewelry business to kind of a educational and creative entrepreneur hub, I guess you could call it. So that's where I'm at.
Wow. I guess having that sort of intuition is one thing and learning to tap into that. But then it's also having the courage to be able to act on that. But after building such a global brand, what actually then from feeling that to actually, you know, implementing and acting on that?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, right? Because we all know what intuition is. Like the word is not uncommon to us. I think it's, we're at a stage, I think globally, where we're kind of like, all right, well, what does intuition mean to me? How does my body communicate with me? Is it this woo-woo voice that, you know, I kind of just described that I felt, which is quite rare. That's not something that I'm hearing every day. But it's like, and I kind of use the analogy, like when someone's, when you get goosebumps on your skin, is it when someone's lying to you? Is it when you're scared? Is it like, how does your body communicate what goosebumps means to you as an individual? Or when something just doesn't feel right, where does that play out in your body? Is it here? Is it something here? Like, and kind of really honoring our intuition to first understand how our intuition is communicating with us. And then to your point, being courageous enough to trust yourself enough and trust your body that is not lying to you to follow through on that. And you know, if you look back at any decisions in life that you've gone against your intuition and it, you know, turns out the way you knew it would, not the decision you made, but you know, you're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. I'm angry at myself that I didn't. It was a gut feeling. I think that's the biggest regret, rather than trying to be courageous to follow it. I think that it's more. To me, the regret is bigger than trying to step into that bravery to move forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. It sounds like you do a lot of personal development as well, and obviously you found yourself, you know, at that retreat, you felt that intuition and you knew you needed to make one of those big decisions. How important is working on yourself and investing in yourself to be able to really identify what is the intuition, what's potentially my ego, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think self-awareness, I think at the end of the day is what we're all here to achieve. And I do a lot of speaking around kind of the true self and the authentic self, and in my case, as it relates to business and creative business. And I think with, you know, when an example is, say you've always wanted to pursue something creative, but you've got into a completely different field in your career. But there's something in you that's continually like, I wish I had done that, or I'm always kind of drawn to that kind of creative side, as an example. But if you look back, it might be something when you're growing up or in school or, you know, in your home, where if you're doing creativity as a hobby, you might have heard like, oh, you know, get your head out of the clouds. Why do you always spend so much time dreaming? Like, but it's what we grow up with, and then we find ourselves as, you know, adults in the world where we can make our own choices. But this belief system is kind of globbed onto us to rid ourselves of kind of this dated belief system, to then strip all that back away to the true self, because what once served you in your life might no longer serve you, and it could actually be hindering what you truly are and want to be and move towards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's really good observations. I think, you know, that's sort of part of any type of, you know, the creative process. Moving on to some of the sort of creative blocks, how do you, I mean, I guess running a business is one thing, and then actually, you know, keeping yourself, the creative juices flowing is another. How do you push through some of those, you know, blocks, or if it's period of self-doubt or not quite sure where to go next, or if you're just not feeling that creative flow? Well, what sort of techniques, I guess, have you used to sort of push through those blocks?
There's a few things I thought society's super productive, and so the day that we're not, we're like, oh shit, like I'm failing at life in a way, because we think we're meant to hit this same level daily. So I think acknowledging that every day is not going to be the best day of our lives. As it relates to creativity, I think that the failure in a way is when you're like, I'm just going to throw in the creative block probably for 2 years. It was like I could still produce what I had to produce at a commercial level, but the true creative passion in me had up and left, and that, you know, signified to me that it was time to start a new chapter. But as it relates to kind of a smaller scale day to day, I think just acknowledging that some days are not going to be good. And I think being responsible, I use the term like, you've got to be the adult. I actually am the adult in this partnership. So it's like taking that responsibility time on social media. If that is something that doesn't give you creative energy, be the adult and put your phone down and step away from the phone, kind of thing. So, you know, knowing what rituals are, knowing yourself well enough that what your go-to habits are to keep you in that kind of imposter syndrome, creative block vortex, and what things you have to be like, okay, I can't be on my phone today, I'm going to get outside and do X, Y, and Z. So kind of understanding what your triggers are and taking that responsibility.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, actually. It's a challenge, I think, for any new entrepreneur as well, to learn how to balance. Some people come in with a great business mindset, and then it's how to put structure around the creative process, or some people are highly creative in working out how to actually balance the business side of things as well. And I think, to your point as well, using those sort of right brain, left brain functions and things.
And I think another point to that, and I know in Australia specifically, there's such a huge creative talent pool, and people just kind of struggle to find that business asset to take it to that next level. So I think not being afraid to ask for help as well. Like if you need business help, tell people that you need that. I think we're so conditioned to be like, oh, if I say I need help, I'm a failure in some way. It's like, no, the more people you tell, the more people kind of want to help you. And my other point to that is like, surround yourself with people that are good at the things that you are not. So don't try and be this superhero that does it all, because it's just, you know, in this case, in business, it's like, in my case, it's a waste of my time sitting there with the P&L, because I'm much better creative than I am accountant, awful accountant. So it's actually detrimental for me to be in the P&L. So surrounding yourself with people that are very good at what you are not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we do try to obviously wear so many hats, particularly when we're starting out and before you can scale and, you know, outsource the areas that you're not so good at.
Absolutely.
But it's important to, you know, stick to your strengths. Otherwise, burnout's such a challenge facing so many entrepreneurs as well when they spread themselves too thin. So yeah, asking for help.
And people want to help, right? I don't know why we think no one wants to. People want to help and want to be a creative service. And you'd be really surprised when you put the feelers out there. People really do want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually that leads quite nicely into something else that I wanted to talk to you about, which was, I think sometimes, particularly for women, but not just women, there can be a stigma around, you know, ambition as being seen as selfish. And I sort of say this, I guess, because, you know, a lot of getting to your game, it can be in career, or if you're just starting off at your own venture or your own business, there is a lot of sacrifice. And, you know, as anyone that's got to the top of the game, like, you know, there's you're still up working at 3 a.m., which you spoke openly about, you know, the days in New York and getting things up and running and things like that. So there's a lot of sacrifice. It's easy to get in your own head. Obviously, time sacrifices, there's the resource sacrifices. And particularly around, you know, when you've got to take the risk in business as well. So it's not necessarily that this is going to take off or that it's going to bring you that financial freedom and, you know, however long you want it. So how do we sort of break that down and I guess sort of see ambition as more of a gift and as a strength and something that you can use to give back more so than just a selfish, you know, ambition?
I think there's two parts to that. I think the person who thinks it's selfish is ourselves. No one is kind of sitting there, you know, majority of the time, no one's really sitting there being like, you're so selfish because you want to do great things in the world. I think we taking that on again, like I spoke about before, the data belief system. So an example in that case might be, you know, growing up, if your mom did all the cooking and cleaning and everything, and she did that because well, your dad's so ambitious, I have to do this. Like that thought process, or that seeing that, even if that wasn't the actual words said, you're like, all right, well, I have to step aside so someone else can be ambitious, or it's not a woman's place to be ambitious. So kind of working through if that's something we've seen, and we've seen it in society. So it is something that a lot of us do hold on to subconsciously. And I think the other thing too with, you can have it all but not all at the same time. So I think kind of trying to be this super, especially with, I don't have children myself, but for mums that are doing it, like all credit to them. Like it's just incredible. And I just think the pressure whether it's we put on ourselves or we've somehow collected from society in a way that we have to be able to do it all, it's just so unrealistic. Like we're just setting ourselves up to fail if that is the instance. And I look back at times when over the last 15 years where I've worked 20-hour days, and there are some times, especially in startup, when you do need to do it. But I think as a solopreneur in that frame of mind, you think the world's going to end if you miss a deadline or if you don't get something in. It's like, shockingly, the world does keep turning, but it takes kind of burning yourself out at one point, I think, to realize that it's all going to be okay if you go to bed before 4 a.m.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you spoke openly over the past couple of months, about just how important self-care is.
We all know it as a concept that it is good. I think it's just so hard to put in practice, and especially in that startup phase, man. It's like it requires everything from you, and then as I said, we put so much more pressure on ourselves. But the way that I kind of describe it in that instance is, at one time I was like, oh no, I can't take a holiday. I have to work so hard, thinking that it was the better. It was like, oh, I'm so great because I'm working harder, kind of thing, like that mentality of glorifying busy in a way. But if you're not taking the breaks to rejuvenate yourself and to take care of yourself, then you probably don't actually value the output you're giving. Because if you're just going to push yourself to breaking point, then that doesn't put a lot of value on what you're producing or creating or whatever the output of it is. So I think if you can't look at it as in self-care, look at it as in caring for what you care about out here is only as good as your health, and especially your mental health.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the input, it directly affects the output, so it's
absolutely,
it's to get the best out. And obviously you have to look after yourself first to be of service to other people in business. Obviously it's your clients, your teams, stakeholders, but importantly in life, it's the family and friends and things as well. Obviously there's so many sort of challenges, grit and resilience, but I guess a lot of it comes back to self-care. You talk a lot about kindness and empathy as well, just making sure that we can really bring, as females, bring a lot of the femininity to the work process as well. The intuition obviously is so strong for us females, empathy, putting the grace, I guess, into the grit.
A lot more being sourced, not just from women, but the feminine energy. So I think a lot of male leaders are trying to bring a lot more of that. I think that there's I think, at a higher level of management, which would then trickle down, but like what motivates the individual rather than just this like cookie cutter practice of, whoever yells the loudest gets the final say kind of thing. But I think you're only, as a leader and in business, you're only as good as the team's performance around you. And I think you find that the better teams perform is because they've had empathy from the person managing it. They feel seen, they feel heard, and that's a better complete business outcome. So I think too, going back to, and it all goes back to intuition. I think that if you're showing up in business or in work and trying to have this persona that's, kind of more on the aggressive or, not channeling who you truly are as your authentic self, it doesn't feel good. It's going to fester away.
What are your secrets to success? And what would you pass on to other people?
When my business was $80,000 in debt, I knew that it could be something, and I couldn't, if intuition true, if there's something in you that you just wholeheartedly know, persist, because it's, and let go of the outcome, or let go of what you think the outcome is meant to be. I think so much of where I've kind of hit a closed door is because I thought something would look a certain way, and so I'd be so focused on it looking that way, and when it didn't, like, oh, what happened? But then over here, something like incredible is trying to present itself, but you're so focused on what you thought that success channel looked like. So if you can align what, your intuition and what you know to be true of your true self into what's unfolding around you, it makes the path so much, I'm not going to say easier, but you feel much more guided, and it's just a much more enjoyable unfolding. Letting go of the outcome would be my biggest secret. It took me took me almost 14 and a half years to learn that in my career.
Wow, you're really learning to let go of control. Yeah, that is a tough one to learn and be okay with, particularly, when it's your own personal brand and your own business, and you just want some control, and it's just needing to kind of, I guess, step out in that faith. And yeah.
I mean, we can't control it. We can give it everything, and we can show up with so much integrity in our best selves. And if someone had said to me, oh, you're going to have a jewelry brand based out of New York, when I was 21 years old, if someone had said that to me, I would have been like, absolutely. Like my ideal is to have a retail store in Bondi Beach. That's as big as my success dream factor got. So if I had held on to that as like the be all and end all, I would have missed the entire thing. So yeah, being able to, and surrender is very different to giving up. So surrendering is surrendering control. Giving up is kind of like dusting your hands of it and walking away. So surrender is key.
That's great. That's great advice. I really like that, actually. Finally, as well, how has that your idea of success evolved over this time from, starting off on the Bondi Beach and what you originally thought that was what success looked like, then on a global stage, and now Samantha Wills Foundation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think my vision of success has been needed at every part of the journey. So early on, it was like, all right, what's the milestone? That's great. Let's move on to the next milestone. It was just this constant running to be bigger, better, faster, in all aspects, in the commercial aspect, in who we reached, in all of that. And I think now it's kind of the opposite in a way, where it's observing rather than reacting as quickly. It's savoring moments more so. It's kind of exhaling in a way, but doing things much more mindfully. It was always mindful, the output of what we did, but just kind of slowing down and observing a lot more. And I think, the key factor for me to see how tangibly that works is the lesser anxiety. I'm like, success to me is less anxiety. So that's definitely a different stage for me, and I'm really, really enjoying it, to be honest.
Wow, good on you. That's so, if anyone deserves that, Samantha, that's you. So enjoy that. It must be good being back home in Australia now. Are you still traveling a lot, obviously, once things get back to normal, or?
Yeah, a little bit, not near as much as I was, which is okay. So kind of, obviously now everything's grounded, but I'll be back in New York a few times a year, over in London a little bit, but not near as. When the flight attendants on Qantas started to know my name at the start, I was like, that's really great. And I was like, that's really bad. That's really, really bad. So I'm glad to go invisible for a little bit on the Qantas aircraft and then get back on.
And so what's next with you? I understand you have a book coming out later this year, and what's your sort of plans with, can you just speak a little bit more about the Samantha Wills Foundation?
Yeah, so I've just written a book, which is a business memoir, which will kind of parallel the public perception of the brand's success, and then kind of privately what was required of that. So that was meant to be out late this year, but because of the current climate, it was probably pushed back to early 2021 due to book tours and things like that. And I'm doing a lot of work around digital curriculum and education. So doing a lot of work for creative entrepreneurs, putting together a masterclass around the 15 years of information that I have, and kind of, doing a lot of work, kind of mentoring groups as well with young creative entrepreneurs. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it feels really good to be able to, again, observe the journey that I've been on and see it from a different way than when I was living it. So it feels really good.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we can't wait to get the book when it's out. And I've personally been through one of your workshops and really enjoyed that. I think you just nailed a lot of what you've elaborated on here today. And just, obviously it's just humanizing, the journey to success, which is what Grit and Greatness is all about as well. So just, thank you again for being such a voice for that, and really speaking and going into the subjects and stuff that, a lot of people a lot of people are struggling with, but is not spoken about enough. So that's great.
Oh, thank
And
you.
so lastly, where do we find you? You're on Instagram and you blog a lot on your
Yes,
website?
so on Instagram, just at Samantha Wills and samanthawills.com, which kind of holds all my entrepreneurial journals and the masterclasses and everything will sit on there. So I'm lurking around online.
Fantastic. Well, Samantha, thank you so much. Your advice has just been absolutely, invaluable for all of us listening. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing where the brand's going next and look forward to your book launch as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and thanks for having me on today.